Tonight, history here in Vatican City. A new American Pope. That deafening roar from the crowd below, shocked and thrilled by the unexpected choice, Cardinal Robert Prevost choosing the name Leo XIV.
La pace sia con tutti voi.
And those first words, may peace be with you, setting the tone for his history-making papacy, the first American ever to become Pope. The Pope saying, God loves everyone. What does the choice of the name Leo signal about his papacy? What does he represent? And what force will he have in the world? We are learning tonight about Pope Leo from his family and the friends who grew up with him. Our Alex Perez with the Pope's brother just after he found out.
I don't think it's really sunk in. It's kind of surreal. It's great pride.
What kind of person is he?
A regular, run-of-the-mill person. I think because he was trained in missionary work in South America for so many years, he will be looking out for the disenfranchised.
And the celebrations across the country, from St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York to his hometown of Chicago. President Trump, former President Biden, and former President Obama all congratulating the new Pope. We have you covered tonight with every angle with our incredible team here in Vatican City and around the world. A special edition of ABC News Live Prime starts right now.
From ABC News, this is Prime with Linsey Davis, reporting tonight from the Vatican.
Good evening, everyone. I am Linsey Davis here in Vatican City. Thank you so much for streaming with us on this historic day. An American has been elected Pope for the very first time. Tonight, many Americans are filled with pride and a bit of surprise as well. The world transfixed with what played out right here just a few hours ago. Cardinal Robert Francis Prevost from Chicago's South Side is now Holy Father to the 1.4 billion Catholics around the world, taking the name Leo XIV, a reflection of the previous Pope Leo's dedication to social justice and workers' rights. The 69-year-old Augustinian friar, who has spent much of his life serving the church in Europe and Latin America, addressed the jubilant crowd for the first time, emphasizing the church's mission of peace and helping those in need, and asking for special grace from Mother Mary. Let's take a listen to his first words to the tens of thousands gathered here.
La pace sia con tutti voi.
Italian for may peace be with you all. About an hour before, the 133 cardinals in the Sistine Chapel signaled that they had made their choice, with white smoke billowing, bells tolling, then elation in St. Peter's Square. The Pope was introduced to the world on the very same balcony where Pope Francis last appeared on Easter Sunday less than 3 weeks ago. Visitors streamed into the square to witness history being made. It was just after 6 p.m. local time, and 2 short days sequestered in their conclave, marking one of the shortest in history and indicating unity among the voting cardinals. As the world reacts to this historic choice, it's a proud moment for many American Catholics on display at houses of worship. Leo XIV now takes on an enormous weight, just like the 266 popes before him. Our team is covering this from all angles tonight, including the reaction from the Pope's brothers when they heard the news. But first, here's a look at how a friar from Chicago became the Holy Father. As a golden sun set, the white smoke rose. A collective holy smoke moment in Rome and around the world. Long live the Pope, they cheered.
Habemus Papam.
A new Pope now seated at the head of the Catholic Church, and for the first time ever, he's American.
Dominum Cardinalem Prevost.
Moments before making his first appearance, the crowd chanting his name. 69-year-old Cardinal Robert Prevost, now known as Pope Leo XIV, an American missionary from Chicago who spent his career outside of the U.S. ministering in Peru. And for the past 2 years under Pope Francis, he's been the head of the Vatican's Office of Bishops. Pope Leo XIV making his first appearance from the same balcony where less than 3 weeks ago Pope Francis appeared on Easter Sunday. Emotional and clearly taking it all in, his hands clasping his chest, onlookers cheering, some waving the American flag. His first words to the crowd in St. Peter's Square and the world in Italian, saying,
La pace sia con tutti voi.
"Peace be with you all."
Questo è il primo saluto.
Pope Leo XIV, during his first address, asking the faithful to help him build bridges
Questa è la pace di Cristo risorto.
and saying the peace of Christ is disarming, humble, and persevering.
Una pace disarmata e una pace disarmante, umile e perseverante.
He also mentioned his predecessor, Pope Francis, thanking him and saying he wants to pick up where he left off, on that very balcony. He also thanked the other cardinals, the new pontiff choosing the name that 13 popes preceding him have chosen. The selection of the name Pope Leo XIV, an indication of a willingness to follow in Pope Leo XIII's legacy, who served in the 19th century. Pope Leo XIII defined modern Catholic social teaching that pushed for social justice for workers and laborers around the world. Members of the church describing the world's new pope as a dignified, moderate choice. Father James Martin describing his previous interaction with the new pontiff.
Very down to earth, very plain spoken, very straightforward, very kind, very, very, very approachable. I never felt like I was in the presence of some prince of the church. He's a very modest man.
It took less than 2 days of voting for the cardinals to elect Pope Leo XIV. It's the first time in the Catholic Church's 2,000-year-long history that an American was chosen to lead the church's 1.4 billion followers. Reactions pouring in from around the world. President Trump congratulating the new pontiff.
To have the Pope from the United States of America, that's a great honor. That's a great honor.
From the Pope's native city of Chicago, the mayor there weighing in.
It is truly a remarkable day, not just for the city of Chicago, but the entire world.
And these Americans in Rome, moved by the choice.
What was your reaction when you first heard he's the first American pope ever?
I had tears. I had tears in my eyes. Couldn't believe it.
And so it just so happened that you were here on this day?
Yes. We've had this plan for about 6 weeks.
Oh, wow.
And we were at the Coliseum. We jumped on our bus when we heard white smoke.
Bells ringing from St. Peter's Square to celebrate the new announcement for the world to hear.
Allora vorrei pregare insieme a voi.
And those final words from the new pope. Pray together, he said, for peace in the world.
Per la pace nel mondo.
ABC's chief international correspondent James Longman was here in St. Peter's Square for that historic moment when Pope Leo XIV was announced. Just give us a sense of what it was like to be among the people in that moment.
Just extraordinary. I mean, first off, we didn't know if it was actually white smoke, so everyone was kind of going wild. Is it really white? And then we really did know it was because all these screens around the square lit up with that smoke. And then we had that moment where his name was read out in Latin. So we were all like, hang on a minute, what's the Latin for? Hang on, did they just read out an American name in Latin? My God, it was the American. And then it was just disbelief. People were screaming. I mean, honestly, once in a lifetime experience being here to witness that. Unbelievable.
Agreed. And despite all the secrecy and the clandestine nature and mystery behind it, these cardinals really did tell us who they were going to elect.
They really did. They never gave us his name, but they gave us the list of qualities they wanted. They wanted a man of the world. They wanted someone who was humble. They wanted a good administrator. They got all these things. In a funny way, they got all the best bits that we know so far anyway, of some of the previous popes, like Benedict, the formality that Benedict liked. It came out in that red mozzetta. Francis didn't like that so much, and yet we know that this is a man who is calm, he is gentle, he is kind, compassionate, all the things that people liked about Francis. I think in one way, this is specifically what they wanted. This is a man who really does build bridges. He is someone from the richest country on earth, and yet he has lived among the world's poorest communities. And in this world of increasing inequality, that is the bridge that perhaps needs building most. And he's the man for the moment.
Well, a lot of people didn't have him on their bingo card. He certainly does check a lot of boxes. All right, James Longman, our thanks to you.
A real joy.
Pope Leo XIV belongs to the Augustinian order, known for being prayerful and for the importance of private prayer. So no surprise that we saw him today in prayer alone at the Vatican for the first time as Pope. Let's get more perspective on this historic pontiff from Colleen Dully, associate editor at America Magazine and host of the Inside the Vatican podcast. Thank you so much for being with us throughout this time and kind of breaking all down the ins and outs. So many people were shocked. Of course, there's never been a pope from America. Many people felt that that was intentional, often to be a counterweight to the influence that America has. What do you think that the end result will be here?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question, and I think there's a lot to be seen. Certainly, this is going to be a pope who is able to kind of push back against some of the themes that we've seen out of the U.S. recently, you know, in terms of the Trump administration's kind of focus, anti-migrant focus, right? This is a pope who will probably be very much advocating for the rights of migrants. We also, you know, saw that he is a big advocate for the poor, for workers' rights, some things that are kind of under threat in the United States right now. So I think it'll be an interesting sort of counterweight to the Trump administration. It's interesting that they might have chosen an American in order to do that.
And so not necessarily, when we're talking about his predecessor, Pope Francis, not necessarily a candidate of change here.
I don't know. I think that he's going to be kind of a pope who helps to land some of the changes that Francis started. So, you know, Prevo, now Pope Leo, has very much been on the same page as Francis in terms of his efforts, especially to reform the way that bishops work in the church. So making them closer to the people, more among the people. He actually was running up until now the Congregation for Bishops, which is the group that helps vet and appoint bishops in the U.S. And we know from his previous comments that he wants to make changes to the way that bishops work. So
what do you think this means for American Catholics?
I think it'll be huge for them. I think, you know, just as we saw the Argentine church get so thrilled about Pope Francis, it's going to be the same thing for Americans, I think. And I think especially for Chicago. I was talking to somebody earlier who was saying, you know, there'll be a Pope Leo Avenue in no time in Chicago.
Pope Leo XIII was a strong advocate. His devotion to the Virgin Mary. What do you think that his choice of becoming Leo XIV signals not only for the church at large, but also women in the church and perhaps that highest stained glass ceiling?
Sure, yeah. So Pope Leo now he's worked on the Congregation for Bishops, like I mentioned, and that is a group to which women were appointed for the first time under Pope Francis, actually having women have a say in who becomes a bishop. And Leo has been an advocate of having more women involved in that process. So even at the consultation phase earlier on, which is something that meets some criticism. Some people think, you know, women should have no say in who becomes a bishop, who becomes a priest. And so I think that that'll be one way in which he continues to advocate for women's inclusion in higher places in the church. How far he'll go kind of remains to be seen. I do think that he'll most likely hold the traditional line on, you know, opposing women's ordination. I know that he's already publicly opposed women's ordination to the diaconate, which was kind of an open question under Francis.
Now, this new pope is a polyglot. He speaks 5 languages. What did you make about the fact that he's spoken Italian, a little bit of Spanish when he gave a shout out to Peru, but no English?
Yeah, that was interesting.
He's an American.
I think, honestly, it was probably an effort to make him not look like the American Pope who's coming right out. You know, I think he was very conscious that he is the Bishop of Rome, first and foremost, and then wanted to underline that he was also, until recently, the bishop of this Peruvian diocese and give them a shout out as well. But again, the bishop being close to his people.
Perhaps a nod to the Italians' assumption that he was the least American of the Americans, really playing out on full display on the balcony there. We're fast forwarding here, but if there are many broad strokes that we can look at his predecessors as Pope, if you are to kind of pull out your crystal ball, what do you think would be a major theme for Pope Leo XIV?
I think we're going to continue to hear a lot about synodality, which is this, again, collaboration between bishops and lay people. It's already coming out so strongly in this first talk and in just his recent work. I think we'll hear that a lot, and I think definitely going to be a voice for peace in a time of war.
Colleen Dully, we thank you so much, not just for
Lindsay.
tonight, but in the days leading up to this
Thank you.
very meaningful and historic day. So appreciate you joining us all week long. The historic nature of this moment simply cannot be stated enough. Pope Leo XIV is a Chicago native, loyal right down to his favorite sports team. Alex Perez is in Chicago and had the opportunity to speak to one of the Pope's brothers after he'd heard the news. Let's hear a portion of that interview.
Okay, first question. Huge deal. How are you feeling right now?
To be honest, there hasn't been a chance to think about it because it's been constant phone calls, emails, messages, interviews. So I don't think it's really sunk in. It's kind of surreal.
And your family, the reaction? We're talking to you, but I assume you guys have been in touch. What's it like?
I've only spoken to my niece because I haven't had time to call my brother in Florida. This is the three of us. Louis, John.
John is you.
And Robert.
And Robert now Pope Leo.
Mm-hmm.
Pope Leo right there. Do you want to call him now, your brother, and tell him? Well, we got you here?
In the house.
Do you have a cell phone with you? No?
See, he's not answering the phone.
Hello?
There he is. Are you free?
Yeah.
Did you hear the news?
About Rob?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
What's your feeling with what's going on?
It's pretty awesome. It was quite the surprise, but then again, it wasn't. Because I had a feeling when I went to bed last night after they didn't, after the first day, that today or first thing tomorrow, he had a really good chance of winning. Just because of his history, background. I thought he had a pretty good chance.
Did he call you yet?
Rob, no.
No, me either.
So this is the first time. My name is Alex with ABC News. I'm standing right next to your brother. I think you got one of our other crews there with you. This is the first time you two as brothers talk, middle and oldest, right? I get that right? So
correct.
We were wondering, what do you two brothers say to each other when your brother becomes Pope, your little brother becomes Pope?
We say, I guess we better make arrangements to go to Rome. I think you and I both knew at a very early age that Rob was different, special, and that he was destined for greatness in the church. And I swear we used to tease him about, you're going to be the Pope.
Yes, because remember the two ladies, one across the street and one down the street, who said when he was in first grade he would be the first Pope.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
It's incredible.
Yep.
Here it is. It happened.
Yep.
What things does a first grader do that makes people think they're going to be a priest?
Well, he liked to play, some people play school or some people play army. He played priest, and we had to go to Mass.
With you guys, okay.
Yes. The ironing board was the altar.
I was going to ask you about when he learned about his calling. It sounds like very early on.
I think when he came out of the womb, he knew. I'm kidding, but he knew right away. I don't think he's ever questioned it. I don't think he's ever thought of anything else. He just knew. I think his whole life, and will continue to be, a focus for the needs of others. How can he be of assistance? How can he help? How can he bring Christ to others? And I think that may be a lot of our family. I spent my life working for the Catholic schools. So maybe it's part of the way we were trained. I don't know.
The world will now call your brother Pope.
That's right.
You arguably know him better than most people. What kind of person is he?
A regular, run-of-the-mill person, I think, because he was trained in missionary work in South America for so many years. He will be looking out for the disenfranchised. He will be looking out for the poor. He will be looking out for those that don't have a voice.
How is he different from Pope Francis? Or will he be different?
I don't know that you'll see a big difference. I think they kind of believed in the same issues. So I don't know that there'll be much difference. He might prove me wrong, but I don't see there'll be much of a break in the tradition of Pope Francis.
Just a regular, down-to-earth kind of guy. Alex Perez joins us now. Alex, when did his brother get the sense that Rob, as he knows him, could become Pope?
Yeah, he calls him Rob, not Pope Leo. He says he had an idea on Tuesday, just in conversations with their inner circle, that this could be a real possibility, that their brother was one of the true finalists to become the next pope. But he says, besides what they talked about on Tuesday, they've known this for years. their entire lives, he says. Even when they were kids, you heard him say there, people would joke that Rob is going to be the next pope. He always had an interest in this connection with God and the church. So while they are shocked and excited to see that their brother is the pope, they say they're not truly surprised because this has sort of been in the works for a long time, they believe. Linsey?
It's so cute. While he talked about other kids played school, he played priest. Any other childhood stories that he shared with you?
Yeah, well, he elaborated on that story. He says his brother would actually take out the ironing board and pretend it was the altar and would pretend to present mass. And this is when he was in first grade, Linsey. And he says the two older brothers would go along with all this because at the time what he was using as Eucharist was candy. And so the two older brothers would go along with it so they can get extra candy. And he would do this several times a week, Linsey. So they say they've been used to seeing him sort of have this connection with the church for a very long time. And as they got older, their interest grew, but his interest always remained with the church. After 8th grade, he went to school in Michigan and began his church studies even at that early age and always continued them, Linsey, until now that he is Pope. He also mentioned to me that his parents, who are no longer with us, would be extremely, extremely excited for their son. They say they always celebrated him when he was elevated to a different position in the church. And this, of course, is the ultimate elevation to Pope. Linsey?
Just so heartwarming to hear his backstory. Alex Perez, our thanks to you. Joining us tonight is Reverend Mark Francis of Chicago, a friend and former classmate of the new Pope. For starters, you call him Bob. Tell us about your relationship with the man the world now knows as Pope Leo XIV.
Well, it's going to take me a while to get used to calling him Pope Leo. Our first encounter was back in 1977 at Catholic Theological Union in Chicago. We were seminarians together, and we were in the same theological reflection group. And so I got to know Pope Leo at that point, and I was amazed at someone who's really, he's low key, but very thorough, very focused, and an extremely good listener. And he would always come back in these terms of his theological reflections that we would bring from our ministry. Very good commentaries on what he had experienced, how he had dealt with people, how he saw God in the interaction. And you could always count on Bob, as we called him then, to contribute well to our conversation.
And what do you want people to know? What do you think is important about the man who's behind the title?
That he's not a showboat. He is not, he doesn't have to be the only person in the room. He is someone who is there to serve and to listen. And I'm still floored. I am still amazed at the results of this election. Very happy, mainly because this humble, good person is going to be leading the church.
What do you think that he'll bring to the papacy, and how might it be different from what we saw from Pope Francis?
Well, I think he's going to continue along the lines of Pope Francis for the most part. He's going to bring his own style. It's not the same as Francis, but if you pay attention, even by the choice of the name of Leo, Leo the 14th, the last Leo, Leo the 13th, was a great social justice pope, a pope that wrote Rerum Novarum, the great encyclical for Catholic social teaching. He is going to, I'm sure, focus much of his papacy on questions of world poverty, world peace, questions that still concern us all and still are an important sign of the times that we need to deal with.
And lastly, on a lighter note, the Pope's brother told us that he's a White Sox fan, to clear up any confusion out there about that. Apparently, the house was divided. His mom was a Cubs fan, dad a Cardinals fan. Interestingly, a Cardinals fan. But I'm guessing this new job will get in the way of him seeing a home game anytime soon.
Well, I think he may be coming home. I think he'll, of course, he'll be very well received in Chicago. everyone here is simply delighted, and he is very much in our prayers, and we want to show all the support we can for him, who has taken on a very onerous and difficult job, and has taken that job on, though, with hope and with the inspiration of the Holy Spirit.
Well, Reverend Mark Francis, we can't thank you enough for your time and sharing your sentiments about your good friend. Congratulations to you both.
Thank you so much.
Joining us now is ABC senior national correspondent Terry Moran. And Terry, as you look back on what we all witnessed just hours ago here at St. Peter's Square, what are you going to take away from this historic day?
The surprise of it, right? And the surprise in the context of what those cardinals were trying to do. They were trying, in their belief, to listen to the Spirit, to the Holy Spirit, to what God might want. And they come up with an answer that almost no one expected. The first American Pope, a man who does, as we just heard, will likely continue Pope Francis's approach to issues, but with a very different style. He's described as a listener, as someone who is always trying to learn from other people. And I think that calmness and steadiness that we saw there on the loggia at St. Peter's, just behind me, I think that it will be a hallmark of his papacy. And so the surprise of the direction that they went to, and so fast, that's what I'll take away.
You spoke to one of the Pope's brothers today. Here's what he had to say about his reaction to his brother being announced as Pope.
I got up immediately, got dressed, dancing around like an idiot, just because it's like incredible.
It truly is. What else did he share with you, Terry?
Yeah, it's amazing, Lindsay, from when he was a little boy. Rob, as his family calls him, Pope Leo, as we know him now, was seen by his brothers and his parents and the neighborhood as a child with a special relationship with God. They used to tease him, someday you're going to be Pope, when he was a boy. He would perform a mass using the ironing board in the house as an altar and little crackers as communion wafers. This has always been a part of him from when he was very, very young. His whole life has been given to this almost innate love that he has for God. And I think that's an amazing thing. Never heard anything like that, frankly. And they remember him fondly. They're very close family. They're very proud of him. They talk to each other almost weekly. And here they are, these two brothers, and their middle brother there going to be Pope.
And Terry, what are your thoughts about seeing a fellow Chicagoan elected Pope and what it means for the city at large and really this country as a whole?
Well, for Chicago, I mean, it's about time, right? No, I'm kidding. It is an amazing moment for Chicago. The mayor of Chicago said that this is the greatest thing ever to happen to Chicago. Now, Bulls fans, they might disagree, but he said it is, and it is special. Chicago, to me, I was born there, I would say this, but it is the greatest American city. It's the quintessential American city. New York is the world's greatest city, but it belongs to the world. Chicago belongs to America, and now the Pope does too. And you just can't imagine it. It is going to, when he goes to Chicago, it's going to be amazing.
Yeah, we can only imagine. All right, Terry Moran, we thank you so much for your insights throughout the last few days. Appreciate it. Coming up, reaction from the White House tonight to the first ever American pontiff, plus a message from fellow Chicagoan former President Barack Obama to the new Pope. Plus, President Trump touts the very first trade deal amid the ongoing trade war. Welcome back, everyone. We are joining you once again live here from Vatican City, where a historic link was made today between this city and the United States. Earlier today, Pope Leo XIV became the first American pope. He hails from Chicago, standing in front of an excited crowd there to witness history. President Trump said the historical milestone for the Catholic Church was a great honor for America. Reaction was also quick to pour in from former presidents, including Barack Obama, a fellow Chicagoan. Here's ABC's Rachel Scott at the White House.
Tonight, the American president calling the election of the first American pope a great honor for our country. President Trump, like so many millions, watching history unfold on television.
I'm watching and they said he's from America. I said, that's great.
The president declaring himself very happy.
What greater honor could there be? And we were a little bit surprised, very happy.
Each of America's former presidents sending their good wishes. Joe Biden, a devout Catholic, posting on social media, "Habeas Papa Mom. May God bless Pope Leo XIV of Illinois. Jill and I congratulate him and wish him success." Barack Obama posting, "Michelle and I send our congratulations to a fellow Chicagoan, His Holiness Pope Leo XIV. We will pray for him as he begins the sacred work of leading the Catholic Church and setting an example for so many, regardless of faith." George W. Bush calling this a historic and hopeful moment for Catholics in America and for the faithful around the world. And Bill Clinton citing the Pope's first words today, saying His Holiness Pope Leo XIV spoke to billions, calling for unity and offering peace, a message the world needs now more than ever.
Our thanks to Rachel Scott. Today, President Trump announced a trade deal with the United Kingdom, a first in what the Trump administration said it hopes will be a wave of agreements with other countries. Trump made the announcement from the Oval Office with UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer on speakerphone. Both leaders say the details are still being worked out, but President Trump said it will adjust 25% tariffs on steel and aluminum and will lower auto tariffs on British cars by 15%. Tonight, President Trump has announced that Fox News host Judge Jeanine Pirro will be appointed interim U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia. In a post on Truth Social, Trump applauded the former prosecutor and longtime Trump ally, calling her, quote, a powerful crusader for victims of crime. The decision comes after Trump said Ed Martin, who is currently serving as D.C.'s interim top prosecutor, would not be taking the position permanently after losing support among top Republicans in the Senate. Additionally, the White House announced a major overhaul of the country's air traffic control system. This comes amid problems at Newark Airport and following several deadly crashes across the country. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy announced details of the plan, which calls for 6 new air traffic control centers and hardware and software upgrades across the system. It's not clear just how much the plan will cost, but the White House says it wants it completed by 2028. Tonight, the family of Tyree Nichols and their supporters rallied in Memphis a day after the 3 officers charged in Nichols' death were acquitted on all charges.
They're supposed to be the people that we call when we want to feel safe. And yesterday we learned they can beat us down and kill us in the streets.
With impunity, without
and they can walk away and be found not guilty.
Yes!
Nichols was fatally beaten after he ran away from a traffic stop in 2023, a death that sparked nationwide protests and prompted renewed calls for police reforms in the U.S. Activists blamed the not guilty verdict on the all-white jury, which was chosen from out of town. The 3 defendants still face the prospect of years in prison after they were convicted of federal charges. New video shows what resembles Brian Kohberger's car on the night of the college killings. Jennifer Aniston's stalking suspect in court shirtless, and British rock band The Who announces a farewell tour for American fans. These stories and much more in tonight's rundown.
New images in the Idaho College killings. A white sedan matching Brian Kohberger's Hyundai Elantra was captured on neighborhood surveillance. Investigators believe it's the suspect's car, making multiple passes by what would soon become a crime scene right around the time authorities say the killings occurred. Kohberger is charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder in the 2022 stabbings and could face the death penalty if convicted. His lawyers insist he is innocent and say he was driving around alone on the night of the murders. The man accused of slamming his car through the front gate of Jennifer Aniston's Los Angeles home made his initial appearance in court. He was shirtless and wearing a blanket. Both prosecutors and the judge said he may not be mentally competent to understand what is happening. Jimmy Wayne Carwile pleaded not guilty through his public defender. His next hearing will be held in mental health court. Bail was set at $150,000. The Republican-led House voted to pass a bill making the Gulf of America name change permanent. The bill codified an executive order from President Trump renaming the Gulf of Mexico. The bill's fate remains uncertain in the Senate. Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum and SoFi Stadium in Inglewood will serve as the venues for the opening and closing ceremonies of the 2028 Olympic and Paralympic Games. The Summer Olympics opening ceremony will be shared between the historic Coliseum and the state-of-the-art SoFi Stadium in an unprecedented dual-venue celebration. Los Angeles previously hosted the Olympics in 1932 and 1984, but 2028 will mark the city's first time hosting the Paralympics. Tech billionaire and philanthropist Bill Gates announced that he is donating 99% of his remaining fortune to his charity, the Gates Foundation, which he says will now close in 2045. In an interview with the Associated Press, Gates said he had just over $100 billion outside the foundation. The donation will be delivered in installments and would allow the foundation to spend an additional $200 billion over the next 20 years. Legendary rock band The Who announced their final U.S. tour. The band announced a North American tour starting in Florida and ending in a grand finale in Las Vegas later this fall. The British rock group has been a staple of rock music since the 1960s, performing at Woodstock and countless other stadium venues for the last 40-plus years. Guitarist Pete Townsend says while announcing the tour that all good things must come to an end.
Coming up, as we begin a new era for the papacy, we take a look at the history of the church's complicated and sometimes controversial relationship with women. But next, get to know the man who just made history from his youth to his years in the church, the new pope, by the numbers. Welcome back, everyone. After one of the fastest conclaves in history, a new pope has now been chosen. So let's get to know this historical new American pope by the numbers. Pope Leo, formerly Cardinal Robert Prevost, is the 267th pope in the 2,000-year history of the Catholic Church. He will be known as Pope Leo XIV, which of course means the name Leo has been chosen 13 times before. Leo is in fact the fifth most popular chosen papal name. The previous Pope Leo, Leo XIII, directed the church for 25 years until 1903. He is remembered as a champion of the working class and promoter of labor unions. The first Pope Leo served in the 5th century, here in the nickname Leo the Great for how he defended Rome from Attila the Hun. The new Chicago-born pope holds degrees from 3 different universities, a bachelor's in mathematics from Villanova in Pennsylvania, a master of divinity from the Catholic Theological Union in Chicago, and advanced degrees in canon law from the Pontifical University of St. Thomas Aquinas in Rome. The 69-year-old pope speaks 5 languages: English, Spanish, Italian, French, and Portuguese. On top of that, he can also read Latin and German. He was ordained 43 years ago and is part of the Order of St. Augustine. He also served as a bishop from Chiclayo in Peru for 9 years until 2023. In 2023, just 2 years ago, Pope Francis elevated him to cardinal. And still ahead, we continue our coverage on the ground in Vatican City, a historic day as the world celebrates the 267th Pope and the first ever American. And up next, as Catholics around the world get to know their new leader, one group of Catholics is pushing to have their voices heard. We take a look at the role of women in the Catholic Church, coming up next. Welcome back, everyone. We are here live in Vatican City. It's all quiet now, aside from a handful of seagulls hanging around, but that certainly was not the case earlier today. The selection of a new pope sent emotions riding high. Thousands of people rushed into St. Peter's Square, and they left with ink smudged on their fingertips as history was written. Chicago's very own Pope Leo XIV is now the first American pope in history. Millions of Catholics are wondering just what his papacy will bring. And as Catholics around the world celebrate the announcement of a new pope, our Maggie Rulli spoke with a group of Catholics still pushing to have their voices heard, talking about women. What do they think needs to be done to balance a world currently dominated by men? Let's take a look.
As 1.4 billion Catholics celebrate their new pope, inside the conclave, one group of Catholics was noticeably absent: women.
Ordained priests will meet behind closed doors to make a decision, a consequential decision about the future of the church during the conclave. And so I think it's really a scandal and a sin that women are excluded at this high level and such an important moment in our church. Every woman, from the parish worker to the dicastery leader, has to eventually answer to an ordained man. So I think there's so much to be done.
Kate McElwee is director of Women's Ordination Conference.
Why not me?
An activist group that's fought for the last 50 years to get women ordained, allowing them to become priests, deacons, or even bishops.
I think as a church we have to really reckon with, do we worship patriarchy or do we worship the life and works of Jesus Christ?
Kate says she feels momentum for the movement, in part because of Pope Francis, who appointed more women to leadership roles within the Vatican than any pope before him.
He started to change a culture. There are more opportunities for men and women to be in collaboration with each other. And I think that's the start. You know, it's an incomplete project.
But Pope Francis signed nothing into church law, and in a 2013 interview said when it comes to the ordination of women, the church has spoken and says no. And the new pope, Pope Leo XIV, has openly opposed ordaining women as deacons. Women can be ordained in other branches of Christianity, but the Catholic Church teaches that only men can be ordained, something that isn't cultural, but the unchangeable word of God. This was solidified as infallible doctrine in 1994, when Pope John Paul II wrote, "The Church has no authority whatsoever to confer priestly ordination on women." Church doctrine may say women cannot be priests, but as Alessandra Morelli shows us, women have been a part of the Church's history since the beginning. Alessandra, what I think is interesting, you know, we're here today talking about the future of women in the Catholic Church, but standing right here, walking through Rome, you see all these churches that are named after women. So women have been a part of the church
always,
since the very beginning.
Always, a very strong pillar, as I say, custodian of faith.
Alessandra has pledged her life to her faith. She is secularly consecrated, dedicating her life to the church, but from the secular world. Would you want to become ordained as a deacon, as a priest?
Absolutely.
Instead, she worked for 30 years in the UN as a director at UNHCR, assisting refugees in conflict zones from Somalia to Afghanistan, always letting her faith guide her. In your work as a mediator in conflict zones for the UN, what did you bring to the table as a woman?
First of all, power is out of the game. We listen with much more judgmental attitude. We open spaces, we generate spaces, and we know how to manage the unknown.
It's this ability to mediate that Alessandra says is vital in the church. And she hopes the new generations within the church will recognize that.
They have been the custodian of the faith in times of trouble. They have been standing under the cross. Women never fell asleep. Sometimes we stick to history and tradition, but we forgot the theological thinking around the participation of women in the church. We are getting now to move into that thinking. I believe in these new groups that are coming together. Let's give it a shot.
That highest stained glass ceiling yet to be shattered, far from it at this point. Maggie joins us now, and you've spoken to many women in the church here. What do they feel that this choice of Pope might mean for the future of women in the church?
Well, it's an interesting question, and I think Pope Leo XIV, as a cardinal, was very outspoken in the fact that the church has spoken. The word is that women cannot be ordained. And so I think for the rest of his papacy, at least, that will be the answer. But I think as the women in our piece showed, they're going to keep fighting this, and also they'll just keep doing the work. Whether it's ordained or not, they will keep putting the effort in and living their faith.
And St. Francis felt the same as well. You were standing right here in the middle of St. Peter's Square as that smoke came out, as he revealed himself on the balcony. Give us a sense of what that moment was like.
Well, Linsey, it was just incredible. I mean, we were standing right out there, but there were 250,000 people. It was like capacity. And when the white smoke came out, first everyone was shocked, as I think you were as well. We weren't really expecting it. It was early. And then to know it was white smoke, and you wait those 45, almost an hour for who it's going going to be. And when the Pope came out on that balcony, Linsey, I mean, it was indescribable. When you know you're living a moment of history and you feel the weight of that, the thrill, the anticipation, someone called it a Super Bowl. And it was like that because you had nerves and your stomach had butterflies. And to share that collective moment with everyone there, Catholics, non-Catholics, Americans from every country, I mean, there's nothing like it.
I think it's even more intense than a Super Bowl because there you only have two teams. Yes. You have one idea that there's a 50-50 chance you're right. Here, you have a 1 out of 133rd chance that you're right. Maggie, really great to be here with you. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
And finally, tonight from here in St. Peter's Square, in just a few hours, it will be dawn here. The sun will rise on the first full day of Pope Leo's papacy, and this square will once again be filled with people soaking in this historic moment. May peace be with you, a message this new Pope hopes people around the world will heed. And I'm struck by what people here said about the man from the south side of Chicago, a White Sox fan who now is the leader of 1.4 billion Catholics around the world. He's been described as not a brash American, and by some as the least American of the Americans. The least American becoming the first American Pope is something the Bible teaches us. Matthew chapter 20, verse 16, the last shall be first, and the first shall be last. We thank you so much for streaming with us our special ABC News Live coverage. I'm Linsey Davis. We'll be right back here tomorrow night. Until then, have a great evening.